All right, we are live on Facebook as well as on Zoom. And so Melissa's joining me tonight as our only participant. Thursday nights just must not be the night, I guess. So thanks, Melissa, for joining me. And what's funny about that is that, Melissa, in her profession, you want to explain what you do?
Yes, so I'm a substance use and mental health counselor, and I work with adolescents at Daybreak Youth Services.
Yeah. So not that she knew that she would be my co-host tonight, but but occasionally I think she's going to have some really good insight into what we're talking about, because she does this every day on a daily basis, and talking to you who are in addiction cycles and who come out of stress from sex trafficking and various things like that. So we're going to talk about acute stress tonight, but we'll also talk about that chronic stress. Mainly, we're going to talk about chronic stress and what that can do to the body. And I want to get started tonight with a video and show you guys, just kind of give you a foundation of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about the central nervous system. And in the central nervous system, it breaks down into a parasympathetic nervous system and a sympathetic nervous system. And oh, we have another joiner. Stephanie's coming on. But we have two parts to our nervous system, and the parasympathetic nervous system is that resting and digesting part of us that, when turned on, our body digests food and we actually can relax and we feel in a state of bliss and relaxation. The sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight. So when you feel angsty, or you have to run from something, or you just got hit by a car and you're like, all of a sudden this fight or flight response comes up. And so when that happens, we get a whole flood of different hormones, specifically norepinephrine, which is a hormone that causes us to feel that heart rate race, our blood pressure rises, all the things. And what happens is our digestive system stops altogether digesting food, and we are preparing to run or fight. That's why they call it fight or flight. And so we're going to talk about those in this video. And I thought it was a cute, 5-minute introduction into what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about heart rate variability. So what you guys are going to want to do is make sure you have your phones available nearby. If you wear a smartwatch, like a iWatch or a Fitbit, or you have some other fancy watch that measures your heart rate, more than likely it's going to have heart rate variability as a marker. And I'm going to show you from my phone how to look at it if you have an Apple Watch. Sorry for those of you who have Androids. But if you have a Fitbit, you're going to look for this information inside your Fitbit app from your iPhone or whatever phone you have, and see what your number is, because it's going to be a marker of whether or not you're in chronic stress. And so, for full disclosure, I will tell you that mine is not good. And it was very interesting to see that my heart rate variability sucks. That I realized that, man, I definitely work too hard. I do love to work. I think I burn the candle at a lot of ends. So I'm going, shoot, this is a good indicator I maybe need to slow down. After the video, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about heart rate variability, because you probably never heard of it before and don't understand it. And I'll give you a little more understanding of it, and how to measure it during the night, because the nighttime is the best time to measure it. And I only wear my watch during the day. And so it's going to tell me that during the day, I'm like, oh, it starts chaotic, right? But I want to know how I do at night. And so I'm actually have on order a Oura ring. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but it's a little ring you wear around your finger, and it measures this heart rate variability. It also is one of the best tools out there for measuring sleep. And if you've ever had a sleep study done, which I know some of you have, the Oura ring is just as good as a sleep study. I didn't know that until today when I was doing some research on this. And it measures all the same things as the sleep study does, but you get to measure it all day or every day of your, however long you want to measure it for. And you get more data that way, right? So you can see what your sleep looks like on a more chronic basis. Anyways, so I have that on order, and to be continued on the Oura ring and what all that looks like in terms of my heart rate variability at night. But as of right now, I'm not doing so good, and I'll show you that later. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to watch a little video that will explain the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems to you guys. So, wait, okay, I was right here. Okay, can you guys see the screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay, and then once I start playing the video, can you make sure you can hear it by giving me a thumbs up once it starts playing?
If you think your heart beats at a regular interval like a metronome, think again. We have a natural variability in the spacing between our heartbeats. This phenomenon is called heart rate variability, and HRV for short. It says a lot about our bodily systems, which is why athletes and health enthusiasts alike have been so interested in this, and why you should be too. Simply put, HRV is a measurement of the balance between your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. These two systems make up the autonomic nervous system, which handles about 90% of the body's involuntary functions. The sympathetic nervous system is what kicks into gear when we are stressed or in danger. We sweat, our heart rate goes up, and the interval between our heartbeats goes down. We produce norepinephrine, and our body is primed to either fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system is pretty much the opposite, and it functions like a brake by disabling the sympathetic nervous system. Dubbed the rest and digest response, it activates when we are in a relaxed state and engages processes such as the production of saliva and peristalsis. It uses acetylcholine to make the heartbeat slower and with greater intervals. When in balance, they therefore produce high HRV through a more variable heart rate. The more variable your heart rate, the more you are able to readily respond to your environment and switch gears between these two systems. HRV is used as a health marker. It generally decreases with age. High HRV is an indication of cardiovascular health, fitness, willpower, calm and positive emotions, and your ability to handle stress and exercise. Low HRV is related to inflammation, chronic stress, chronic pain, depression, cancer, and low emotional flexibility. HRV values have actually been used to predict injury recovery and cancer outcomes. One sports scientist has been able to predict very accurately the point differential in wrestling matches based on pre-match HRV readings. Elite athletes use daily HRV measurements to adjust their training regimen and prevent overtraining. There's also an interesting link between HRV and willpower. HRV is a huge predictor of persistence and self-control, and it increases when exerting self-regulation. This mechanism is called the pause and plan response. By changing our physiology, we can manipulate our HRV, and the way we do this is through breathing and what is called resonance frequency breathing. Combining this breathing with a biofeedback device to monitor your HRV in real time is called HRV training. By slowing down your breathing, you can activate the parasympathetic nervous system and raise your HRV, which causes your heart rate and blood pressure to synchronize with your respiration, resulting in a state that the HeartMath Institute calls coherence. The optimal rate of breathing that produces coherence and increases your HRV the most differs from individual to individual and is called your resonance frequency. For most people, it will be around 5.5 seconds. Doing minimum 10 minutes of this breathing every day, you can develop the skill of producing a state of coherence at any given moment. Activating this state, you can get into the zone, so to speak, and increase your performance for single actions such as swinging a golf club or hitting a baseball. HRV training has shown to be incredibly beneficial for kids with overactive sympathetic nervous systems and resulting belly aches. After a few weeks of daily training, they show massive improvements in their baseline HRV and are able to function much better. Some autoimmune conditions related to the gut have been helped by this type of training as well, as our gut permeability is closely related to our parasympathetic nervous system. Other benefits of HRV breathing include pain management in conditions such as fibromyalgia and chronic muscle pain. It can help with asthma, depression, hypertension, and self-control. It's also great for stress management. Around 20% of people will feel sleepy from following this breathing rhythm, which makes it a great tool for falling asleep quickly at night. If you want to experience this state of coherence, I've created 2 videos for you to practice this breathing. One is suitable for the morning or day and looks like this, and one is made for nighttime with minimal blue light if you'd prefer doing it right before bed. The interest in HRV has increased substantially the past decade, and several consumer technologies have emerged to help measure your personal HRV metrics. The most accessible way to accurately measure your HRV is to get a polar heart rate chest strap and connect it with an app called Elite HRV. Elite HRV also sells a device called Core Sense, which you stick a finger into to measure your HRV. The previously mentioned HeartMath Institute has created the M-Wave device and the inner balance sensor to provide biofeedback as you perform HRV training. The Oura Ring is a sleep tracker that shows you an average HRV value from your night of sleep. I've added links to these in the video description below, and also links to a few more resources on HRV if you're interested in learning more about the subject. Thank you.
Okay, so you guys, can you hear me? Okay, you can see that if you were to go to his channel, Mind Drip, I think is what it's called. And you would see that there is this HRV training for obtaining that state of coherence with your breathing so that you can slow down your heart rate and get your blood pressure in alignment with your breathing rate. And I thought that was really interesting. Have you guys ever heard of coherence before? Okay. Yeah, so I hadn't either. And so it's a really, like, even HRV is a new concept to me, and I've been around the block a long time. So it's been kind of fun to do some of this research, and it took me in a direction I didn't even think I would go with this. But I'm going to teach you guys tonight a lot of stress reduction techniques. And I know Melissa would have a lot as well, or even be able to just say, yep, I do that one. Oh, but how about this one? I'm sure she has quite a few she uses with her teenagers in her counseling sessions. But I'm going to share with you my screen on my phone, if I can take over and show you how to look up your HRV value through your phone. And so if you guys have your phones right now, you're going to either want to look up your Fitbit app or your health app. Let me see if I can share, if it'll let me. Okay, I'm going to have to share. I have to take over the hosting of this meeting. Host. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we go to the health app on an iPhone. It's the little heart. Okay, if you go there and you click on the browse, which is the bottom right, the little browse button, it's the bottom right that looks like 4 tiles that say browse. If you click on that and you go to heart, you're going to see heart rate variability listed right there. It's the second one down. It says 72 milliseconds. And then my average just today is 66. And for the week, 58. For the month, 54. And then 6-month average and 1-year average. And so basically, if you look up what good heart rate variability is, 51 is considered really bad. It's like, meaning that I don't have boundaries around my life, apparently, and I am a lot of stress. So just being really transparent with you guys that there is this way of measuring how you're handling stress. And now that I know that as a coach, I'm going to be looking at you guys saying, let me see your phone. Let's see what this says. But like I said earlier on in the call, that it's not always about the daytime measurement, which this is what it is. It's the at night HRV measurement. And so that's going to be more important because it's how your body responds to stress when you're in parasympathetic resting and digesting mode, which is when you're sleeping. Because during the day, you're on, like I'm in meetings or I'm talking to clients all day long, or I might be in the ministry role at the church doing meetings there and having to make decisions all the time about things. And, you know, and then you have kids and you have a husband or wife or whatever in life, and that's all happening. So it's not surprising that my number is kind of in the tank with regards to that. But I want to let me go back to Reclaim Host here because I want to share my screen with you guys again. So we're gonna go back to this website because I thought this website had a lot of good information. Honestly, his Mind Drip YouTube would be a good one to subscribe to, but just this particular website, the Concussion Alliance, had some good information, and I wanted to show you guys this little graphic right here. The parasympathetic versus sympathetic, so you guys could learn a little bit more about that. So when I talk about parasympathetic, we're talking about the rest and digest. This is when things are relaxed and maybe you're sitting down and you're enjoying a good book, you're talking to a friend and you're laughing, or you and your husband or spouse you're enjoying a meal together, or you're just having a good time with friends. You're usually in this mode right here. So your heartbeat is slower, your airway is constricted, your stomach is stimulated, you're digesting food well, your gallbladder is producing bile and all the things it needs to produce to emulsify the food that you're eating, and your large intestine works well, so you're pooping on a regular schedule, and you're not having diarrhea or constipation, right? So, and the bladder is working normally. But in the sympathetic nervous system, all this stuff has to basically stop to allow us to run from whatever it is that's attacking us or going to hurt us. And that could be nothing more than just an email you received, or a coworker you're upset with, or the way something was handled at home. And now we're in that fight or flight sympathetic mode. So pupils dilate so that we can take in more information, because now we have to say, where am I going to run? Who am I going to fight? And the heartbeat increases, right? This is our airway relaxes. And that's why, okay, just give you a little side note. You would think the airway wouldn't relax. You don't take the word synonymously relax with fight or flight. But have you guys ever heard of somebody being in anaphylactic shock? Okay. And they have an allergy to a certain thing that they just ate or stung them. And what is the thing that they inject themselves with?
Epinephrine.
Epinephrine. And epinephrine is the fight or flight hormone that our adrenals produce when we're in fight or flight mode. And so in order to relax the airways, for somebody who has a constricted airway due to the allergen, it's going to relax their airways and allow them to breathe again. So that's why they do that. But it's going to inhibit activity at the stomach level. So you're not going to be able to digest food very easily. Your gallbladder's not working well, and you inhibit the activity of the intestines to move food along well. So it could move food along really fast, or it could be so slow that you're now constipated all the time. And then you may have a spastic bladder, where the bladder wants to relax when you don't want it to relax. So now you're like looking for the bathroom in every store that you go to all the time. So these are all signs of stress on the body. Now this can happen like really fast and then go away really fast. We can take this balance between fight or flight and resting and digesting all the time, back and forth. And remember the break on the video, and then you can do the break, and then you've got something happening again, and then you go back and forth. You vacillate between fight or flight and parasympathetic all the time, but you can't be both at the same time. You're either one or the other. And that's the important thing to remember here, is that if you're in a constant state of fight or flight, then none of this stuff isn't happening over here. And that could be why maybe you have gallbladder disease, or you're not digesting your food well, or you are constantly dealing with IBS, constipation, or diarrhea or something like that, or that why you have high blood pressure, or your heartbeat is constantly fast, and or your heart rate variability is low. Because remember, low heart rate variability correlates with high stress all the time, versus high heart rate variability correlates with less stress and better able to handle stress. So I wanted to share that with you because I thought that was good and interesting. So we get in with you guys with health coaching. I see this a lot. You guys come in and you're very stressed from your normal everyday lives, and we see that it prevents you from being able to lose fat, especially visceral fat. because we have a lot of cortisol receptors that reside in that visceral fat area. And when we're under stress, we tend to put more fat around our middle section. And unfortunately, we were made that way, but that's just how it is. And when we want to go into fat loss mode, right, we can't do that very easily if we have cortisol and norepinephrine in our system, because what happens is if you're going to fight or you're going to flight, your body needs sugar in order to do that. Your body needs sugar from the muscle that's stored in the muscle, or it needs sugar from the liver that's stored in the liver, or it's taking sugar from your bloodstream from the last meal you just ate, and it's going to utilize that to help you run or fight. Okay, but what if you're just sitting at your desk doing an email that irritated you? You're not going anywhere, but sugar is being pumped out into your bloodstream unbeknownst to you, and it's not going anywhere. So it has to go somewhere, and it can go in the fat cell very easily if it's not being utilized. This is why exercise can be really beneficial to you, not just from the perspective of helping you with stress reduction, but can help you utilize that excess sugar that's in your bloodstream so that it doesn't turn into fat when you're in a high stress environment all the time for work and that kind of thing. So it can be good for you. But just realize that when you are stressed, sugar's coming out. So this is why it's interesting. I had a client who went in not that long ago for a fasting blood glucose test, and she tested high, kind of diabetic high. And that's not normal for her. And I was like, well, did you have a lot of stress that morning when you first woke up? And she was like, yeah, actually I did. This thing happened. And that, and like, she was like all worked up before she even went in for her test. And it's the reason why her blood sugar tested false positive high was because she had it in her bloodstream because she was going to fight or flight. Right? Like, but she wasn't going anywhere other than to go get her blood tested. So it was a clear indicator that stress causes high blood sugar, which over time can lead to type 2 diabetes and all the heart health stuff that we talked about last time. So yeah, now you guys kind of are getting that correlation. Maybe you already knew that, but how do we deal with stress? That's kind of the main thing. Now you know why we shouldn't have it, but we all know we have it. So how do we deal with this on a day-to-day basis? So I talked with a therapist friend of mine. I was like, give me your list. What are the things that you do with your clients? And she's like, okay. So she like spat out 12 things right off the top of her head. And I was like, oh, I really like that one. And so Melissa's going to help me out with this probably a little bit because she does most of these and probably has a few more to add to it, or context around some of them. So number one, she said, journaling was a biggie, that getting it out onto paper was a way to get it out of the brain and like process it out. She said coloring is a really big one, especially when she's working with clients that don't want to open up. She'll have them color and talk to her at the same time and help them be distracted. So coloring for us in our everyday base, like we have those adult coloring books, or we have a journal that's really pretty and we can color on one side and write on the other, whatever floats your boat, that would be a really nice stress reliever potentially for you. She said fidget toys. I've never played with these. Melissa, do you use these?
Yes, I do. I have a whole drawer full for the kids. So yeah.
Okay.
And I even catch myself playing with them on occasion too when I am stressed out.
What is it about it that does something?
I think it kind of just gives you something to do, and it takes the focus away too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a distraction technique, I think, more than anything.
Kind of like coloring might be if you're trying to get them to open up. Yeah. She said, of course, exercising, and exercise really, this one depends on the type of exercise. So yoga is great for stress reduction. I just learned from a different therapist friend this last week that downward dog is one of the best things you can do when you're in high anxiety state. And unless you're disabled, downward dog is a pretty easy pose for a lot of people to learn how to do. But if you don't know what it is, go Google it. I'm not going to demonstrate it tonight, but it's basically your butt's up in the air and you look like a little, I don't know, you look like that. This is your feet. This is your hands. This is your butt. And so your heart is below your, I don't know, it's positioning your heart in a different way that allows your blood pressure to drop, your heart rate to drop, and it actually stimulates that parasympathetic nervous system. She also said, if you can, do a handstand on a wall. That's even better. I was like, wow. So full inversion, you're upside down. That's going to decrease that heart rate and all the things. So I thought that was really fascinating. I actually tried it this week. And when I was in downward dog for when we do the workouts in the morning, I was like, I'm going to do downward dog as a recovery after the workout to reduce the cortisol we just all produced in our body from the workout to recover faster. And I noticed in myself that my stomach was able to go more concave in downward dog. And I could feel like that opening of the breath in the diaphragm area. And I know that belly breathing, which is another technique we can just add to the list right now, is one of the best things you can do for reducing anxiety and stress, because it takes you right out of sympathetic into parasympathetic within about 10 breaths or less. I mean, doesn't have to take more than about 10 minutes even. You could do it in a couple breaths if that's all you have time for. I don't know if you've ever stood in front of an audience before and you're really nervous. Instead of having that shallow breath in your chest and you just talk from right here, you know, you never take a breath and it just makes you even more anxious. If you just took a second to be like, okay, and you just take that one breath, it makes all the difference, right? And then you're okay. And then maybe you have to do it again 10 seconds later, but you're centering yourself and you're calming down that fight or flight, and it makes you more productive in being able to get out what you need to say. Not like you can do a downward dog in front of an audience, but you can take a breath. So anyways, she also talked about grounding exercises. So maybe you can expound on this a little bit, Melissa, but she said 5 things you can see.
Yep.
I
teach that one to all my clients. So it's 5 things that you're supposed to sit, you're supposed to take one big deep breath, and then it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, and not like internally, but externally, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. And smell and taste can sometimes be hard. So I'll even have them just like imagine like their favorite scents or tastes. But like I always teach the kids too, because they're teenagers, like smell your pits, because most of them are good, you know. And even if they can't smell BO, like they might smell their deodorant or like their laundry or their hair from like shampoo and conditioner, like even little simple things like that. And then take like another deep breath. But it's really good, especially if you're starting to like wander or like it, because it forces you to come back to right now. It brings you right back to the present, to hear the now, what's going on right in this moment, versus like overthinking what did happen, what might happen. So yeah,
good.
I use grounding exercises a lot with the kids.
Okay, I like that. So for us, how would that work in like a, you know, just a normal in the home? I'm needing to be grounded a little bit.
I think, yeah, just taking a minute and like, I mean, even if you don't sit down, but just take a minute and pause and just run through it really quick. And I always tell the kids, like, it's one of those things you can do in your head. No one even has to know you're doing it, because you can just say it in your head as you're looking around the room and no one even knows you're doing it.
So go through them one more time. 5 things you can see.
5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, smell, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
And if you get them mixed up, it's really not that big of a deal. It's just working through those 5 senses. And obviously, like, it's easier to see, feel, and hear things than it is to taste and smell. So that's why they're on the lower end.
Yeah, that makes sense. You'd be there for a while if you're like, okay, give me 5 things you can taste.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Lunch still in my teeth. What was I going to say? Oh, grounding exercise. I don't know if this falls in the same vein as what we just talked about, but another therapist told me that take your shoes off and put your feet on the floor and feel grounded.
Literally feel grounded. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Another one was make a kit for your senses. so you can bring it with you wherever you go. Another piece to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The little baggie, like we do that with the kids too, like a rubber band, a mint, piece of gum, like a little piece of flannel or like silk or something. Trying to think of what else we put in there, like maybe a cotton ball with like
Or
essential oils.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stuff
I
like
was
that.
thinking like a pretty object or something that you'd see and you just think it's pretty, it like distracts you,
Yep.
maybe.
That too.
Yeah, she called this next one a seated run, where you, I'm just gonna demonstrate from here. Can you guys, hold on. Hold on. Okay, so your feet are supposed to be on the ground. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be an exercise all in and of itself. Okay, so imagine my feet are on the ground, but they're up in the air, and you have the toe go down and the heel go up, and the heel go down and the toe go up on the opposite feet, and you do this. But
Oh,
your feet are on the ground doing it. So you're doing this toe tapping kind of thing where your feet never leave the ground. She said it helps release the fight or flight response, kind of like belly breathing does, because it's an activity that your body does and it realizes it's in motion versus in the state of just you're just sitting there.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one.
Let's see, she said the response will dissipate pretty quickly when somebody's in high anxiety state. Easier again than downward dog. Of course, meditation practice, but she said this is the hardest one to get anybody to do because it's just people don't want to take that time out for themselves, and you'll only get good at it if you practice. So start with 30 seconds a day, move to a minute a day, and just be really realistic with the time you want to start with. Music was another one. How would you use music, Melissa, for
Just
de-stress?
what I mean, you have to know yourself, because I know, like, for me, listening to like, I don't know, like hard rock or something can decrease it, but for other people, it amps them up.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of know yourself, like if you need the calming, like if you're upset or worked up, do you need calming music to bring you down, or does the loud screaming rock whatever bring you down? Like, so you have to kind of know yourself. But yeah, I mean, just however it helps, really, but you really do have to figure that out for you, because some people like it, like the music to match their mood, and it will decrease their stress, and others need the opposite of where they're at to decrease the stress. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Of course, laughter. So she said the body can't distinguish between intentional laughter or like fake laughter, or
Yeah.
laughter that's brought on by an actual laugh from watching something funny versus actually just laughing because you need to do it to dissipate that anxiety response. She said some exercises that she's done with clients is have them do a sound ball, is what it's called, where she'll fake like you have a ball in your hand and you throw it to somebody like her or another person, and you have to make a noise when you do it, and then they have to make a noise that's opposite of your noise, different noise on the way back, and then when you catch it you have to make another noise, and so it gets people laughing and like in out of this character that they may be putting a mask on about, or we, because we can all do that, right, where we have a hard time loosening up, and so that can release anxiety and energy because you're active doing something. Or she said actually really tossing a ball activates play and releases endorphins, because when we really have like a real ball in our hand, or maybe even those fidget things, kind of bring us back to childhood and releases that feel good endorphin, because it activates something in our brain from when we were young and brings back some good memories potentially. So that was the list I had. Aside from that, the one I use the most, I think, is breathing for myself. Use of sauna, getting in there, and like there's not a whole lot you can do in a sauna, so you have to like listen to soft music or meditate. Anything else you can think of, Melissa?
Progressive muscle relaxation can be really good. A lot of those are like audio things, but you can find all kinds of apps and like YouTube things and everything. So for those that like just walk you through like that tensing of the muscles and releasing the muscles, like I know it can be really, really beneficial for people. I have such a hard time doing it myself, but
Mhm.
it really does work when you can do it. And it's one of those things too to practice.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, that's most of them. I use a lot of breathing, grounding. I think exercise is really important, and it can be any kind of exercise, because like I've been reading this book. Well, I'm supposed to be reading this book. I've only read a few chapters, but it's called Burnout, and it really it's about women in like the counseling field and stuff, and our burnout rates, because we're expected to be, you know, super mom and super wife and, you know, also super counselor and things like that, and how like we just get burned out really easily. And one of the things they talk about like immediately in the book is you have to every single day close your stress cycle, because on a daily basis we get in that fight or flight mode, and if we don't close it, then it stays open and we just start the next day already in that fight or flight mode.
Mhm.
And so you have to do something to close that stress cycle. And one of the things that they suggest, I'd have to go grab the book, but it was like hugs too, like, but I think it's got to be like, it has to be 7 seconds or longer. And I want to say, if I remember right, it was also like a kiss too, like, but again, it's got to be like the physical touch, but it has to be over so many seconds. And I want to say it's like 7 is the cutoff, if I remember right.
Mhm.
But like the
Yeah.
physical touch can also kind of help you decrease that stress and close your stress cycle.
Yeah, I love it. And if you don't have a significant other, maybe you have a pet that could
Mhm.
calm that piece of you. I saw Stephanie with her
Yep.
kitty cat right there. What a way to really have that like person or physical touch, but
Yeah.
I don't know, with nothing that's needed in return, right? Sometimes when you have a spouse, another, you're like, you start doing personal touch and it's like, oh, there's more to that.
Yeah,
Which
for sure.
is not a bad thing, because it can relieve stress too,
Yes.
where that leads. And that could be a great thing if you use that to go to sleep, or, you know, all the things. But animals don't require anything of you. They just want to give you all the love and attention. So I'm sure emotional support animals, or like
Mhm.
even service animals, have been used in a lot of people who have anxiety and depression. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, those are great examples. And Burnout was actually a book that was suggested for one of our potential book reading club,
Okay.
our book club. Maybe it's an idea. I should read that one too. Yeah. So we're going to start our book club pretty soon. I think probably in November. Then we'll go through Christmas, and then into the new year, we'll start new year. But anyways, I think that's good. We'll leave it there tonight. That was some knowledge and education on stress and how to deal with it. And we all have our own flavor of what's best for us. I love that, ending your night with it, closing your stress cycle. That was a great addition to this call, because I want to think about that for me. What is it for me? Mhm.
So I have a question though. So my
Yeah.
heart rate variability is 41. Is that good or bad?
Bad.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, the lower it is, the worse that is. So
That's what I thought.
in fact, hold on, let me share my screen with everybody again, because I think I looked this up. Heart rate variability. So the Aura had this article, and I thought it was really good. I was reading a little bit more about it. And where was I? A higher heart rate variability score that reflects a rest day, cool bedroom, or mindful, low, moderate, intense activities such as hiking or yoga. It said a single nightly HRV reading can show you if you had a higher HRV score. It would reflect that you had a good rest day, that you weren't super busy, that you got to sleep in a cool bedroom. And that made me think, gosh, my bedroom is too hot at night. I need to cool it down. And that we had mindful, low, moderate, intense activity, hiking, yoga. If you have a lower HRV score, that results from dehydration, alcohol, late meal or exercise, illness, high intensity workout, acute stress, or a hot bedroom. So talk about closing that stress cycle, and then test your heart rate variability at night rather than during the day, so you can see if you really are in one of these here. Because during the day, your 41 may indicate that's just, you're a counselor, you're going to have that. I think that's just comes with the job. But what it should tell you is that all that you're doing here with No Bad Days and with me and with the community you have here is this is your time to really repair and recover and heal and reach those goals that you have for yourself. And not let your job define how you're going to be health-wise, right? So I was gonna, let me open up HRV norms, values. Let's see what comes up. What is it? Okay, age range. This is not very big, but let me see if I can move
Oh,
this.
there you go.
Okay, so male, female. Oh, wait, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. Hold on. I saw another graph earlier that made way more sense. I just have to, maybe this. Okay. For 65 and 62 for women was the average. And I'm assuming they had a pretty big, Whoop is another watch you can wear.
Okay.
Oh, let's see if I can find that. Oh, this was it. What is a good
Okay.
HRV score? As a rule of thumb, unhealthy is here. And then
Whoops.
I know, compromised health and healthy above 100. So that would be the goal, is to get to above 100. So, but those averages from the Whoop is showing you that their sample set are people that are
Mhm.
in the compromised health zone.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of us are dealing with this epidemic of stress in our lives. It is kind of going unchecked, because
Mhm.
unless you know what your blood pressure is, and that's one way to know that you have chronic stress is blood pressure ultimately creeps up over time, because that sympathetic nervous system is always in play. But now this heart rate variability is a whole nother thing to look at and track.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of excited to, one way you could, like, we don't want to purchase the Oura ring, wear your watch only at night for a couple days. So don't wear it during the day, so it can't track, but only wear it at night, and then see what your heart rate variability says. Because according to the Apple Watch, you can track it by the day. So you would be able to see what your number was after a couple days of just wearing it at night, and you could even get a weekly average if you just wore it at night too. So that's one way to try that out without investing in something more. So yeah. Stephanie, can you, okay, we can hear you now.
Okay. Mine says 35.
Oh,
I
really?
know. Yeah, isn't that weird? Unless I'm looking at the wrong number, but let me look one more time. Okay, so how did I find it again? Okay, I went into my watch and I went into
Browse the heart or the health app.
yeah, let's see. View my health data. There we go. Okay, then the heart app. Okay, and then it says heart heart rate variability. Now it says 28. Wow. Oh, 28. Oh, yeah. 35 is the daily, you know,
Okay.
that can't be good. 30 is weekly, monthly is 32.
Oh,
Wow, that's terrible.
so the way your body is dealing with stress is well, it's affecting your heart, like how many times because if you think about a normal sinus rhythm, you know, the PQRST wave, the
Mhm.
boop, boop, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Between the top little peak and the next peak is that in between milliseconds is what they're measuring.
So
And
how does that correlate to your heart rate?
it should correlate very strongly to your heart rate. So if you have a higher resting heart rate, meaning your heart beats faster at rest, then you're going to have a lower heart.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a really low resting heart rate. Well,
The
58.
milliseconds or less. So you should have a higher heart rate correlating with a lower heart rate variability
Like my heart rate's 64.
at rest.
Well, like right now, between 8 and 9, it says it's 64 to 70.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little more research on that.
Oh,
but-
resting heart rate is 63, it says, for this week on average.
and that's healthy. That's actually
Right,
really
okay.
good. Yeah,
That's why I wondered kind of what the correlation was, like if you have like a really good resting heart rate and like I've got really good blood pressure, but my heart rate variability is really bad, like yeah, just
basically what they're saying in that video is that heart rate variability is determining that scale. Like here's, you know, you're doing better on parasympathetic
okay.
and sympathetic is low because your stress is low, then your heart rate variability should be high, right? If
Okay.
your stress is overriding and this is high over here, and parasympathetic is low because you're not in that resting digesting a whole lot, heart rate variability would be low. And so if your heart rate variability is in that healthy range above 100 milliseconds,
Man.
then you're balancing the scales well, is what it's saying. So you're finding a way to get from the sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic fast, and you're using techniques that are helping you do that. Because I think for me, my problem is I never rest other than when I go to bed, and I'm constantly doing something. Like I don't sit down and just like read a book. I'm like, oh, I don't have a client right now. I'm gonna go water the plants. I'm gonna go, you know, make myself lunch. I have to eat. I'm constantly on alert as to what's the next thing I have to do. What's the next thing? And I have this high level of productivity mindset. So I don't ever allow myself a lot of rest until I'm actually in bed. And that's it's dysfunctional. It's not very like good. It's not healthy.
Well, we are just going to be able to use all the things we learned tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
How about for you, Stephanie? What resonated with you on these that you can do?
The journaling is one thing I'd like to do. And then the downward dog, I mean, that's, you know, that's not hard at all. That's just a habit. Yeah, I wrote down the list. I'd like to do the breathing, you know, do the belly breathing. And anyway, and yeah, I don't have to be moving continuously and not have guilt involved. I mean, that's self-inflicted. It's not, nobody else is making me feel guilty. So
Yeah.
anyway.
You know, another thing I've thought of is I don't let my mind just be quiet very often.
Yeah.
So I usually have music on, or I'll have a TV program on if I'm by myself, or I'll be in front of my computer looking at social media or whatever. I have a really hard time just being by myself.
Me too.
So I'm like, man, I gotta be really more mindful of that and how I can just let no noise in and really listen and be quiet.
The meditation.
Mhm.
I need to do that too. So
Yeah.
we're good.
Some
Or
good
the
breathing
30
techniques too. Two other good breathing techniques are 5-finger breathing. So you draw, and it's a grounding skill too, because it brings you back to the here and now, because it's a sensation. But you just go, breathe in and out and in and out while you trace your hand. And then 4 square breathing is another one I teach, where it's like you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
those are some other good breathing,
Awesome.
I love it.
quick and
Thank
easy
you.
breathing techniques.
4-step breathing.
Mhm.
I've also heard it called box breathing,
Yeah.
and then you just choose the amount of time that you're
Yeah.
wanting to do.
You just make it even. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I remember seeing on that video that the 5.5 seconds was a good time to like try and get to holding the breath. And
I caught that too. And that's what made me think of the 4 square breathing.
Mhm.
Like even
Yeah.
just building up to that where you're holding it longer.
I watched that video with you guys just the second time tonight, and I think I got a lot more out of it the second time. I would recommend going back and watching it again, and maybe even doing your own research on heart rate variability. Melissa, specifically for you and your practice, he had in the notes a lot of links to some of the devices that you can put on the ear, or the biofeedback devices that kids could in real time see how they're doing with their brainwave activity and that coherence, and getting into that. It looked a little complicated, but it could be
I wrote down the website. So
it could be a technique for you to use. All right, guys. Well,
Awesome.
thanks, Jolene.
you're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Small and mighty tonight.
Do you know
Thanks
when the
so
next
much.
one's gonna be?
Let's see.
Did you have it? I didn't know if you had it planned out or not.
It's
If
gonna
not,
be
no
the
biggie.
Monday the 26th.
Okay.
Group coaching Monday the 26th at probably 6:30. Would that work?
Yeah.
6:30 works?
Mondays
Okay.
at 6:30 are good.
Okay.
Tuesdays are my only really bad days are Tuesdays.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about on that call yet, but it'll definitely come to me, because they always do. I'm like, we need to talk about this. Like, it's just one of those things where I don't really know until about a week ahead. And then probably in November, like I said, we'll get into the book club. Well, it's like I'm reading through a book right now, and I'm not going to say what it is. But if I like it, I think that might be the next one we do. And it's going to be if it is the one, it's going to be all about how our identity, like if we don't identify as that, going back to Atomic Habits, if we don't identify as a healthy person, we won't make the choices that a healthy person would make. And so how do we get there, and the strategies to do that? So I think it'll be a good topic for us, as a lot of people, the momentum wanes over time, and like motivation and all those things. And how do we just maintain that all the time, because that's just who we are, right? That's just part of our being and what we do. So I'm thinking along those lines, but this burnout thing is looking pretty good too. But that might just be my own personal need. So
Right.
you too, Steph, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll figure it out. It'll work out.
All right. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.